American schools are hotbeds of anti-American brainwashing. Teachers and administrators are trained to indoctrinate and enforce ideological conformity. Submission is the norm. Crucible is the true story of one schoolboy's struggle against society's obsession with an anti-American ideology. This young man refused to surrender to the psychological abuse of his superiors and the violence of his peers. In Crucible, Child Patriot American Victory, two visions of America collide. One is left standing.
just trying to help our people go free. I guess I'm too blind to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free. I'm just blind to see. You're too blind. I'm just trying to see people go free. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free.
Good evening, America. I'm Jason, and you are watching Jason Goes Political. For the sake of continuity, all financial gifts, $19 or under, I will read toward the end of the show. Everything $20 or higher, I will read as soon as I see those financial gifts. You may financially gift over at Entropy at 15%, at Odyssey at 15%, and at Cash App at 0. You can find the URLs for all of those in the description below. I hope everybody is having a magnificent Tuesday. We had a wonderful Dragon Mondays yesterday. Great to see all of you. There's the magnificent and Herculean Franklin and Brent Danger. Great to see you all. Let's go ahead and get underway. Let me know if you could, please, if the microphone is full and rich and magnificent. And we will continue right here and now. Donald Trump demands to be declared the rightful winner of 2020 election nearly 2 years after losing. I'm reading from People Online Magazine. Big hello to everybody. Odyssey, D Live, YouTube, and anybody who shows up over there at Rumble. For the great Fernol, Panzer, and others saying audio is good. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and read about this, because we're going to take a look at two articles, and we're going to be talking about what kind of resistance can be made, what kind of resistance is possible, indeed, what actually makes a difference in the West today, and specifically relative to this show, the United States, because we are in well beyond dire straits. Things are not about to get bad. They've been long bad. But I'll go ahead and give you a tip. Cheerleaders and mascots are not going to be able to resist or make any change whatsoever in anti-whitism. That's analogous to believing that passive illegality will work against the anti-whites. You'll have the same outcome that they did in India once the British were pushed out. Facts about Joe Biden's electoral and the popular vote wins aside, there's no mechanism in the U.S. Constitution for a losing incumbent president to be reinstated in the White House. Now, isn't this comical by Aaron Parsley that you see this with anti-whites all the time? When there's a principle or law that they can appeal to, they will readily do it, even though in the previous breath, forget about the previous hour, forget about the day before, in the previous breath, they were just dismissing laws, dismissing norms, dismissing customs and codes, because they got in the way of what they wanted to do with anti-whitism. And so you see here that when they can make an appeal, when they can cite, when they can reference, when they can adduce a law, a code, a norm, the Constitution, they will happily do so, because they have no problem holding contradictory positions as long as both of those positions arrive at the victimization of Western kind and destruction of Western civilization. It's been nearly 22 months since Donald Trump lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden, which, of course, in the United States, you cannot question when the Democrats are in charge, because they're the folks who are actually in charge in the United States, anti-whites all across the West. When Trump won the election, his first run for office, the entire time that Trump was in office, everybody from no-name content creators all the way up to major political figures, media establishments, organizations that could influence millions, said for the totality of the 4 years that he wasn't a legitimate president, that there had been collusion with the Russians, now proven false. But even now, even though it's been proven false, even now I have to say that's just my opinion, because people like the FBI, the most criminal police organization ever on planet Earth, they haven't even come out and said, oh yeah, well, we admit it now. So even though all of the information is out there, still, and all of those officials that came forward, nothing's happened to them to say that that was true. Nothing. But when the Democrats are in office, and indeed the Democrats are always in power, whether they have office or not, Democrats and Democrat voters, anti-whites all, to a man, woman, child, and whatever else that they might be, you cannot question what they do, which is a great demonstration of their power, isn't it? You question what they do, and they delete everything. They ruin your life. And so here you have them saying here, Joe Biden was the obvious winner, even though you've had a lot more information come out about many things. And you have figures like Tucker Carlson that I reference in the title here, pointing out this new information that released recently by the head of Facebook. But the former president's insistence that he won has reached a new and perplexing peak. Real Playlist pointing out that 4 years of not my president and Russian collusion and all, nothing happened to any of those people. No deplatforming, no losing your jobs, no visits from the criminal as all FBI and all the scumbags throughout the federal government. After making a familiar yet bogus claim, bogus. So here's what's going to end up happening. I have just very briefly skimmed these articles, and I saw a tiny bit of this, but I'm going to guess, as is the case with all anti-white arguments, that it's just going to be nothing but ad hominem. Nothing. It's just going to be Donald Trump is crazy. Donald Trump is by the way, I would just like to point out, there were a lot of people that when Joe Biden won, we observed, it was demonstrable. We observed that there was a phenomenon, a psychological phenomenon in the white sympathetic sphere. And that was that people were either getting so depressed, they were dropping out and disappearing, or they were deciding to be radical idiots and say things that will haunt them for the rest of their lives, and they wish they had not. We called this the BIBS, Biden-induced bipolar syndrome. And I came up, I thought of it first, and I had a name for it that was not good. And then somebody improved upon that. And then Groundhog Fury improved upon that, and then even made those great graphics. And it's glorious, an observable phenomenon. We gave a title to it, and in order to be able to say this is what's happening and identify the thing that's happening. And attacked for making for creating this moniker for this observable phenomenon. Yet the same assholes that attacked use Trump derangement syndrome all the time. So just proving once again that they are me-nots, every last one of them. After making a familiar yet bogus claim about how we would have easily won, quote, easily won, if not for massive fraud, election interference at a level never seen before in our country, close quote, the former and twice impeached president proposed a, quote, remedy in a Truth Social post on Monday morning. Quote, declare the rightful winner, or, and this would be the minimal solution, declare the 2020 election irreparably compromised and have a new election immediately. Trump pushed the idea again 14 hours later. Quote, declare the rightful winner or hold a new election now, all caps. Our country, which is failing badly, knows the score and will never accept criminal election interference. He went in a follow-up post at 1:46, wrote in a follow-up post at 1:46 a.m. Eastern Time. So you can conclude several things from this. And one might be that these anti-white criminals in the government of the United States are positioning, doing some most unlovely things to Trump. And he is aware of this. His attorneys are aware of this. These people can lie their asses off and nothing ever happens. They can break the law. There's no law and order in the United States. You just can if you can get away with it, then you get away with it. If you're anti-white, nothing's going to happen to you. If you object and oppose anti-whitism, well, BATF might come and take your guns. The FBI will come kick your door down and threaten you. Like the guy who owned the computer shop claimed that the FBI threatened him, that nobody ever reveals the things that we're doing. Cocksuckers. In making his demand to be reinstated as president or to hold a do-over election, Trump pointed to Hunter Biden's laptop and Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg comments about a warning to his company about Russian propaganda ahead of the 2020 election. I want to just say here, don't be a fool. Zuckerberg and the rest of them at Facebook are rabidly anti-white. They did not need the FBI to show up. But this is a great demonstration of how what I say is right and what so many others say is wrong. There isn't some monolithic 5 guys sitting around a table deciding everything that happens in the world. That is a childish, reductionist view of what's happening in the world. People are possessed by ideas. They are possessed right now, a great many millions, by anti-whitism. And so everybody at Facebook was saying, in my opinion, we have to prevent information from reaching the public that's going to harm Biden, even though he's this senescent, superannuated, antiquated carcass that can barely string a goddamn sentence together, can't get out of his basement. So we got to make sure that nothing reaches the public that's going to undermine them and undermine their vote in this guy. They were saying that at Facebook. But the anti-whites at FBI were also saying, we've got to prevent people from revealing anything that could look bad for Biden. At least that's my opinion, based on telling you what Tucker Carlson has said. I don't know if that's the real world at all. You probably have to check with CNN. And if you know what you should do, pick up the phone and call the Democrat headquarters. Pick up the phone and give them a call and say, hey, is that true that the FBI showed up at, maybe Zuckerberg's just lying about the whole thing. He's not even looking for a way out of it. When you're a multi-billionaire, why would you look for a way? He doesn't need a way out of it. Nothing could ever happen to him since he's anti-white and a Democrat voter and a Democrat supporter. You know nothing will ever happen. And this didn't just start. I saw another one of these parvenus saying it's been going on for 30 years. No, you've just been alive fewer years than 30. This has been going on forever as far as our lives are concerned. These are anti-whites. These are individuals programmed with anti-whitism in a context, and their behaviors, therefore, are predictable, as is the behavior in any animal on planet Earth. Tyler says that pointing out Zuckerberg, what Zuckerberg considers himself racially or religiously or whatever, and that's totally irrelevant. I don't care what he could call himself a Martian. All that matters to me is whether or not he's anti-white. If he decided he was going to be white positive tomorrow, that would be fantastic. But he's an anti-white POS. So I don't care anything else about him. And making his demand to be reinstated. And so what's happening with President Trump? What is happening with former President Trump is that he can see that law and order is gone. He can see, as I pointed out to all of you, that we did not know how many nodes of power in the United States or indeed across the West were in the hands of anti-whites. There would need to be something would need to happen. And then that something happened. And we saw anti-white terrorist troops across the United States setting fire to cities. And how did we discover how many nodes of power were in the hands of anti-whites? Because nothing happened. There was no recourse. Governors, House members trying to stand up for constituents went to bureaucracies and departments that they should have been able to get recourse from for their constituents, and nothing happened. DAs out there overcharged, undercharged, dropped all the charges. In my opinion, you go look it up for yourself. You were alive. You can remember. Too many nodes of power are in the hands of the anti-whites. And this is an important thing to remember, and something I'm going to talk more about as we get closer to the end of this show. Too many nodes of power are in the hands of the anti-whites. So there is no recourse anymore. There is no department. There is no person to turn to in X, Y, or Z apartment and say, well, that person's going to be fair, and then we'll be able to clear up all this nonsense. We'll be able to redress all of this. So if there is no such person, if there are no such departments, do the math. I'm doing it for you. You can just write it down off the blackboard here. If there is no recourse, if you cannot redress what's going on legally through a bureaucracy, through the courts, through elections, if you cannot redress it, and you cannot get violent, because then you're just dead or in prison for the rest of your life, since all of the police departments, all of the power to do anything they want to you, to surveil you, to lie about you, to hide evidence as they've hidden evidence, to produce evidence that's fake, even for the president of the United States for 4 years, you're not going to be able to engage in any violence. Then what way is left to us? I submit to you, before we get to that part of the show, that we have that way. As ideas possess men and women, and then they act out the consequences and conclusions of those ideas. If you have a collection of ideas that overturns the psychological warfare waged against us, then you have victory. In making his demands to be reinstated as president or to hold a do-over election, Trump pointed to Hunter Biden's laptop. Though there was no mention of Hunter Biden or his laptop, Zuckerberg, of course, that's what they were talking about, in my opinion. Zuckerberg said Facebook made a decision to limit the appearance of stories about it in its news feed to allow time for fact checking. Yeah, and by the way, apparently, according to Tucker, the FBI said, no, we're not writing any of this down. Showed up at the guy's shop for the laptop. We're not writing any of this down. According to Tucker, I'm telling you what Tucker told you. I don't have the facts. I give you my opinions. I opinionate. You go look it up for yourself. Trump is essentially trying to get a momentum of people's opinion and outrage. But the holders of power, the anti-whites in charge, they know that's totally irrelevant. How much momentum, how many opinions were with him during the 2020 election and right after the 2020 election? There was an overwhelming pressure of Americans. And did the anti-whites, these usurpers in the federal government of the United States, give a shit? Did they give a shit? And what did that amount to? All of those millions and millions and millions of voters for Donald Trump. And all of them thinking, well, you know, something's kind of strange here. Biden ran from his basement, showed up at a couple of rallies where there were like a handful of people because COVID was keeping everybody home. COVID, and now, COVID. Another thing Tucker is saying, you have the CDC and Fauci, and according to Tucker, and they're saying, well, maybe things were done a little wrong. Maybe we shouldn't have kept everybody home, and also, but it's interesting how you kept everybody home during the election. It's interesting. So you would have had millions and millions and millions of people saying, how did this corpse in chief, rigor mortis, run from his basement and get more votes than any presidential candidate ever, get more votes in black areas than Obama got votes in black areas? And you have that without him going out and having rallies, big giant rallies. And he couldn't have been more of a vacuous candidate. I mean, this guy is a corpse. That I guarantee you that they have a hand truck and they just wheel this bitch up to the lectern. And supposedly all of these millions voted for him. COVID keeping us home, all of these questions, you have millions of people voted for Donald Trump who were very angry at that point. They showed up for Patriots Day. You will not get more momentum. You will not get more energy. So anyone out there, and my God, there are a lot of them out there, any content creators and organizational leaders that are talking about building up energy, if we just get enough energy, or if we just get enough people to agree with us, then by God, we have it. They are fucking stupid. Because we're taught that does not work. Weren't we? Why does anyone continue to follow such absolute stupidity? Jesus Christ. If we just get enough people, if enough people just agree with us that something wasn't right, wasn't copacetic, then we have unstoppable power. They didn't even blink at all of those millions of voters and those tens upon tens upon tens of thousands that showed up for Patriots Day, along with supposedly, according to Tucker, a very helping scoop of undercover FBI agents, but the FBI is not admitting to it. They're so fucking trustworthy. You have all of that momentum, and you got these people still talking about, we just got to get more people to agree with us. Then it's unstoppable. Nothing but a bunch of fucking retarduses. Every last one of them. This is the age of boys is over. And if you're still following a boy out there, whether it's a dilettantish girl or some dickless boy, a doom document or whatever it might be, if you're still doing that, you are defined as a boy. The age of boys are over. The age of men has arrived. Still, what was enough for Trump, who apparently, that was enough for Trump, apparently hit caps lock and wrote that, quote, the FBI buried the Hunter Biden laptop story before the election in his Truth Social post on Monday. And a laptop that they had, according to Tucker Carlson, for a year. And everybody who's looked at the laptop since then has said this is the absolute truth. So the FBI, if what Tucker is saying is true, the FBI knew that the laptop was real and then went out, the same FBI during Trump's tenure as president, who went out and told everybody there was this dossier, he had this collusion with the Russians, this is a totally fraudulent. I mean, for Christ's sake, folks, you want to think you're going to get together a bunch of mascots, people who are cheerleaders and who refer to themselves as mascots. Nothing is more pathetic on a college football field. I played college football. Nothing's more pathetic on a college football field than the mascot. The idiot running around in a costume. You've got real men out on the field running into each other at full speed. At least the cheerleaders are pretty at the college football game sometimes. But you got the mascots are going to go out against the FBI, who for 4 years said Russian collusion. We know it. We know it. It comes out. Wait, actually, that was all fake from the very beginning. And then that same FBI, according to Tucker, that same FBI has this, according to Tucker, this Hunter's laptop, and then for a year, and then they go out and they tell social media, if they told Zuck, if they told him, don't go with that material, they told everybody else. And when the FBI shows up, when this Stasi that makes Stasi look like grade school, and it's the open secret in the United States. It's the open secret here in the United States. Everybody knows the FBI is lawless here. We have to just say it. Everybody is scared of the FBI. This is not law and order. When the FBI shows up at your house, that is worse than having John Gotti's men show up at your house. There's no law and order in that department. Everybody, it's an open secret in D.C. Nobody in office, none of their staffs want to run afoul of the FBI. Same is true for Homeland Security. Same, just a little rung or two down is the fear. Same is true of CIA. Rung or two down is the fear. FBI is La Cosa Nostra. That's what FBI stands for in the United States. Everybody knows it. Might as well say it. Like everybody knows the truth, and we might as well say it. The Democrats always win. They always get what they want. And everybody else always has to kowtow. Everybody else has to always zip their lips because you get kicked off the platforms. Let's stop pretending. So the FBI goes out and tells everybody, hey, disinformation, the Russians are back. Disinformation again. And here you have People magazine, the anti-whites there. They didn't need to get visited by the FBI to be anti-white. They're anti-white. But if we get enough of these mascots together, whether they got a frog costume on or a saltine costume on or a bear costume on, whatever it is, we're going to get a bunch of mascots together and we'll have such momentum and so many people that agree with us on the basis of, we're just joking, please don't arrest me. This is a disease in our race, a sick race. That's what we've become. Cowards. Setting aside the facts that clearly show that Biden won the 2020 election by a substantial margin, and if you disagree, the FBI will come visit you, that the election was certified January 6th, albeit after a delay due to rioting, Patriots Day, when the patriot lost his innocence, found out the People's House was actually a whorehouse. And what a disgusting sight that was, seeing Nancy on her back. That Biden was sworn in on January 20, and that, so it's all done, folks. Nothing to see here. You're too late. But you know what? You wouldn't be too late if it were reversed. You wouldn't be too late.
They would say, founding fathers never prepared for this. Therefore, we're overthrowing the government. That's what the Democrats would say, because they have the power to say it. They are the gangsters in charge of the United States. The world who doesn't know, the population in the other countries that are not in the Western countries, they need to know. This ain't America anymore. We ain't in America anymore. Kansas. This ain't America. The answer is that the answer to that mind bender of a hypothetical question is no, Trump. National Review's article, C.W. Cook wrote a piece in 2021 about Trump's belief then about getting reinstated to the presidency and called the idea, quote, otherworldly and obscene. Okay, so here you have it, exactly as I was saying. There isn't going to be an actual argument because you don't have to make an argument when you don't have to persuade people to agree with you. Does that tell you anything? Does that tell you folks who are listening now? Does that tell you if you don't have to persuade the people who are reading or listening to you, what does that tell you about the state of power and how little of it you have? How little of it the opposition to anti-whitism has. Let me zip you up in your mascot king outfit. We're going to overthrow this. This is not merely an eccentric, and talk about otherworldly and obscene. He's talking about his cook's own sex life. Quote, this is not merely an eccentric interpretation of the facts or an interesting foible, nor is it an irreverent example of anguished post-presidency chatter. It's a rejection of reality, a rejection of law, and now they suddenly care about law. I mean, this is self-parodic. These bastards. You know what? If there was a God that cared about pussies praying all the time and chanting, Christ is King, Christ is King, he would put an end to this for everybody because it doesn't get more demonic. I mean, it's all kinds of claims about child molestation and sex rings and white slavery and all of this stuff is claimed and going on. So if the Christian God really was a pussy, like all of these, like little Nicky thinks so, and so many others, and you just need to pray and say Christ is King, and then put on your little frog costume or your little saltine costume, and then everything will be fine. He would come down and just delete it all. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Stop making excuses. You know when he helps? When some man like me finally gets fed up and enough other men lock arms with me and say enough is enough. You know that law doesn't mean shit to these Democrats. Oh, but they'll cite it when it works for them to get to anti-white conclusions, won't they? And then all the conservatives are out there, unfortunately, good rank and file conservatives, because these cuckold speaking heads, talking heads, and Republicans in office, they're going to tell you, well, you know, it kind of is the law. You know, you can't really go back and shut the fuck up. You know, when Jim Jordan or when any of these others try to claim, and not just the guys, when Boebert or Green or any of these others try to claim, well, you know, this did go by, and so we can't do anything about that now. Somebody needs to grab them by the lapel and say, listen, motherfucker, we're finished with this shit. No more excuses from you assholes in office. I'm going to make Mean Joe Green get envious. And ultimately, a rejection of the entire system of American government, this anti-white wrote, there is, quote, there is no reinstatement clause within the United States Constitution. Hell, there is nothing even approximating a reinstatement clause within the United States Constitution. The election has been certified. Joe Biden is the president. And until 2024, that is all there is to it. And meanwhile, they're quickly, while they're doing this, oh, it's all done. You get the law. It's not me. It's the law. While they're saying that, they're busily invading Trump's home and everything else. And all this information coming out now from Tucker. So Tucker's making these claims about what actually took place there and what Trump is allowed to declassify. And then if Biden as president is allowed to reclassify and then send the FBI into Trump's house to go get those things. All of this kind of stuff is being talked about now. You don't come to me for facts about what's going on in the mainstream out there in the world. You go to CNN for that. You go to MSNBC for that. You go to the New York Times or the LA Times for the facts. You come to me for fire. You come to me for opinionating. That's why you come here, and to hear the jokes I mix in the middle. Lawrence Tribe, wonder what tribe he belongs to. A Constitution expert and Harvard law professor considered whether there may be other motivations behind the call for a do-over as Trump faces intensifying investigations on several fronts. Quote, if he's setting up an insanity defense, Tribe tweeted Monday, he quipped it. Here's some free legal advice. Whoa. It won't work. You know, the biggest joke there is that this guy would offer any free legal advice. Is that the end of it? Okay. What a surprise. Let's take a look at the other article, and we'll get to some admonitions, some warnings, some actions, and then we'll be out of here. This is over at Newsweek. Trump ridiculed after calling for his reinstatement ridiculous at best. Former President Donald Trump was mercilessly mocked. Does that have, well, how is that the news? They're not even talking about, and intentionally so, another one of those, you have to keep your eye open for what's missing. And the thing that's missing is the counter arguments to the arguments Trump has made about why he feels like it was a fraudulent election. None of those are going to be made. It's just all, he's ridiculous. He's being mocked. He's crazy. That's it. That's all you're going to get from them. That means they don't need to persuade you. Mocked after demanding that he be retroactively declared the 2020 presidential election winner or be allowed to hold a new election. He knows that that's not done. Trump knows that there is no means by which a new election can be held. This is not about new elections. This is all about fear and trying to gin up support as quickly as possible, because the mafia is after him. The devil's mafia is after him. And to help prevent him from having to go to jail or suffer any other legal consequences that prevent him from being able to run for president, and of course, to gin up support for a presidential run. Trump said in a Truth Social post on Monday that unspecified, quote, conclusive information proved the FBI had buried an investigation into a laptop previously owned by Hunter Biden, the son 2020 election winner, President Joe Biden. Just some kind of a laptop out there. Nothing to see, though. Nothing to see. No crack smoking. No having whores sit on him. No float tank smoking crack, talking about hating his mother-in-law and hating his stepmother, and none of that. No talk about deals with foreign nationals and all. Nothing to see. Nothing to see. The former president claimed that the FBI's alleged, quote, interference into the election could only be remedied by him being declared the winner almost 2 years after he lost, or by the minimal solution of calling a new election that could lead to his reinstatement. Now, there's something that could be done. There's something that could be done right now that would shake the pillars of America, the American Republic, what it's supposed to be. Does anybody have any idea? The entire Republican Party, if the Republican Party weren't traitors, if they weren't also anti-white like the Democrats, if they cared actually about why they were sent to DC by their constituents, if they actually cared about law and order, if they did not vie against the Democrats with tools that they always know will lose, so that they can lose against the Democrats, not get in trouble with them, and yet look like they're trying hard with their constituents who keep giving the money so they can go on their junkets, keeping them in office, keeping them looking good with the injections on the face and the everything else they got going on there, and their sex parties. It's disgusting. The entire Republican Party, if it was legitimate, could say, we're not going to participate in government. We shut government down. If we don't come together, both parties, and said everything stops. All the presses stop. All the work in DC stops. You better believe if this were, I don't know, the 1860s or 1850s in the United States, elected representatives, this kind of thing happened, they would have said, no, DC doesn't function anymore until all of this is investigated, until we drag all of it out into the light. And if any of you get in the way, we're not letting anything run. Nothing runs. Every piece of power, you'll have to jail all of us and then make it obvious to the entire country that there is no opposition to you and what you want to do in the United States. That is what a real Republican Party or a dissident party would do. But they're not legitimate. They're traitors, every one of them. Even the ones you like until they say the name of our race. They are traitors. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, if the Republican Party were legitimate and all of this information comes out, if suddenly we could snap our fingers and the Republican Party is legit and all this information comes out about the FBI and about the CIA and about some Homeland Security folks and the stuff about the laptop and the stuff about the dossier and the stuff about these business partners to Hunter and to Joe and to all of this stuff were to happen, and more and more. You can't even talk about this guy's, Tucker said this, not me. Tucker said that you can't even talk about his daughter's diary because she talks about inappropriate showers with Joe. So you're not even allowed to talk about that. Can you imagine the power that is wielded to be able to tell to a whole nation, you won't talk about a father having inappropriate showers with his daughter and whatever else she might want to reveal from her, where she's receiving therapy for sex and drug addiction as an adult. You're not allowed to talk about that. Imagine that power. And you think you're going to suit up some mascots. Let's get excited. Send some mascots and cheerlead this whole motherfucker. We're just going to deliver some real keen takes on what's going on in the world. It's going to change everything. It's going to change everything for those guys delivering those novelty takes. They'll make more money. They'll do more travel. They'll buy nicer clothes and houses and everything. There's no revolutionary spirit there. But imagine, if you will, the Republican Party tomorrow, suddenly legit. They would say to the Democrats, the head of the Republican Party, Senate and House, would immediately say, government stops. We are not going to participate and allow government to function. We will use the power that we have collectively to stop everything in this country until all of this is investigated and we find out whether or not, to a man and to a woman, dragging their asses into courtrooms, to a man and woman who participated, what's real, what's false. That's what a real Republican Party would do. But not this group of traitors. Not this group of carpetbagging, scallywag, human waste. Not them. No, they want another several vacations. They want to exclude themselves some more from the IRS doing investigations into them, while you and I are going to have the IRS hunting for us with firearms. You do know that, I don't know what it is exactly, but there are big branches within the branches of the military tasked with warfare who have a smaller man count than what the IRS is being empowered with now. You do know that, right? So killing foreigners, certain departments, smaller force than the IRS who's going to come after you. But the Republicans in office, they're good. They're good as long as they continue to play the game with the Democrats, who are 100% in charge 100% of the time. And I got to ask a lot of these anti-whites out there, I know some will watch this. Aren't you the least bit worried? Because this level of power, of absolute tyranny in the hands of so few, can, especially if you're a white, anti-white, Democrat voter, it's coming for you. It's absolutely coming for you. And then anything in the future can happen that can suddenly tilt it one way, tilt it the other, and you will be like us, have no recourse. And I hope they eat you alive. I hope it's from the feet up so that you feel every minute of it, you SOBs. You're cheering now. I can tell you now, if I'm around when they begin to feed you to the wood chippers, you will hear my voice. You will hear my laughter. And you'll say, that's one crazy mother out there laughing that loud at what they're doing to these people. We're going to stop right now because we're going to get out a giant raucous emojis, 07s, for one of our greatest in this struggle for white well-being. No white guilt clips. I've got his ad running right now. If you do not follow No White Guilt Clips on Twitter, on Gab, on YouTube, you better do it now. And maybe the troll slayers can find his links and put him in the live chat. Do it now. Do it in replay. Follow this guy. He just financially gifted, on top of endless hours of making clips and posting material out in the real world, which, by the way, I got to talk about that too. Somebody remind me before we're out of here. I am so sick and tired of hearing about, well, this guy does IRL, so he's legit. And that one does IRL, so he's legit. I got to talk about that before we're done. And tell folks that we're live. Tell folks we're live, and I will burn down their sacred cows. Because I'm no longer, I don't want to lock arms with retards with retarduses. I don't want to lock arms with mascots. On top of everything that No White Clubs does, he just financially gifted $100. 100. I am sick and tired of this shit. Dollars. God bless you, brother. And he says 07 with it. 07s for that champion. Got too many things to talk about, too little time to talk about them. I sit here every day and night. I watch crowds of goddamn idiots queuing up, already an hour into this, queuing up for the most asinine shit you can imagine. Here we have, keep the 07s going for Light of the Twin Lambs. $20 financial gift. Thank you, brother. Writes, not a question, an observation. A lot of young white people become anti-white because they join social movements to spite their parents. It seems to have begun in the 60s with the hippie and civil rights movement, and today I see parallels with those who join Antifa and BLM. I wonder why young white people do this. It's anti-whitism from the very beginning. And you have white parents, even in the white sympathetic sphere, who continue. And I have no pity for them. I have no sympathy for them when they have learned about the go free method. And then they say, no, thank you. I'm going to do what white people were doing when we were already defeated by the anti-whites. I'm just going to teach my white kid about some European customs. I'm just going to teach them about the maypole. I'm just going to tell them to love America. We're going to salute the flag every goddamn day. I'm going to tell them that George Washington was a good guy. White America, all of our countries had much better stock than you back in the day. They had much better families than you back in the day. Their families were in a soup of families that were much better than you back in the day. And anti-whitism, psychological warfare, laid waste to their asses. Nothing left. Fields of fire is all those families and all those traditions, all that shit. That's all the good that it did for them. Smoke in the sky, friends. Smoke in the sky. And you hear about, finally, the defense against the psychological warfare and the go-free method. And Light of the Twin Lamps, my friend, they're saying, well, I don't think so. I'm just going to do what already lost. Well, fuck you all to hell. You can go ahead and go do what already lost. Why does it make me so mad? Because your stupidity is going to harm me. Because your asininity is going to harm all the good white people out there who decide to be men and women of the West. But I'm going to read about European lore. Fuck you and your lore. It already lost, you dumb son of a bitch. Jesus Christ. Does it hurt? Do you feel insulted? Good, you should. That's why, Light of the Twin Lamps, white children are taught, even in our homes where we're taught to love our history, love our etc. They go out into the world and they are presented not a contrary view. They are presented psychological warfare. And these kids, they're not inoculated with the go-free method. So rather than the psychological warfare working for our benefit, when the anti-whites apply it, it undermines those kids. So much so that even content creators and organizational leaders, well-known ones in the white sympathetic sphere, even them, best case scenarios, more than half their children go anti-white. Typical scenario, all their kids go anti-white. I don't know how much more evidence there needs to be. I mean, if I got to start showing up at conferences and laying people out to get heard, to put an end to this shit, then I don't know. Maybe that's what's got to be done. Let's hear it again for No White Guilt Clips, ladies and gentlemen. $100. This guy is not rich. This guy works like the rest of us, blue collar, middle class, work your ass off, and then do everything that he can to be this superhuman individual. While everybody else, how many out of 100 young men his age, 99 of them, of the ones that are interested in what's happening to Western civilization, are the ones who are wondering why is it that my life is total shit as a white male? Why is it that I have zero prospects, no matter how much talent I have, no matter how hard I work? Out of that 100, 99 of them are pulling on a king mascot costume to do something about it. I'm not shitting you. They're actually putting on mascot costumes. I swear to God. I feel like if aliens came down and they didn't look at anyone, and they came to me and I was telling them this, they would say, "No, that's funny. You must be one of the world's stand-up comedians, because that's not happening. No way a race, Western kind, is being white erased. And in response, they're calling themselves mascot names and giving themselves little mascot monikers and symbolism. No way. No way that they're self-parodic and they're acting like they are inner city rappers. No way. No way that they're doing that. Yep, I'm afraid so. That's how sick they are. You know why? Because their testicles are about that big, each of them. It's like combined, they make one fucking cashew for each of them. That's all they got going on for them. That's why. You got a bunch of little boys that doesn't matter how old they get. $100 out of this man. Busy, making it happen. If you ever get to meet him in person and he lets you know who he is, you better shake his damn hand off his shoulders. And there are plenty of others here who are doing the same thing, of all ages. We got to get back to this. I don't see any other. Yes, we'll get to yours after we get done with this. She's one of the champs that we're referencing there. Okay, back to Trump. Okay, unspecified, buried in investigation. Joe Biden, the former president, claimed FBI alleged interference. How can this is Newsweek? How can they say alleged interference? Facebook said they came to them and did this. What do you mean alleged? This is a demon can always say two things at once because of the forked tongue. This massive fraud and election interference at a level never seen in our country, Trump wrote, quote, remedy, declare the rightful winner, or, and this would be the minimal solution, declare the 2020 election irreparably compromised and have a new election immediately, close quote. He knows that can't happen. He knows there's no entity to do that. Even if there were, there isn't. But even if there were, say there was like some kind of an en banc panel that could do this. They're anti-white. There's no redress. There's no redress. If you can't have redress for what happens to you when 100 or so anti-whites of all races decide to march through your front yard and tell you they're going to kill your dogs and they're going to kill and rape you and all this kind of, if you can't get redress there, as a citizen, this guy's not going to get it. It couldn't get more black and white than what happens at some of these people's homes that did attempt to find some sort of resolution. Trump was ridiculed. That's the story here. Not all the, according to Tucker, the election interfering and election rigging, according to Tucker, not me. That's not the story. It's just that Trump was ridiculed by many on social media soon after, with some, probably half of them bots. with some suggesting that the former president was, quote, delusional for appearing to apparently believing that his midterm reinstatement was even a possibility. Is that even accurate to say reinstatement? It would just be an instatement because he was not president at that point. Donald Trump, quote, Donald Trump just called for anyone, to declare him the rightful winner of the 2020 election. He lost or redo it immediately. Tweeted Kevin Barron, executive editor of Defense One, quote, neither will happen. He's ridiculous at best, delusional at worst. Ha ha ha, we have so much power, we can do whatever we want to you. Well, purposefully stroking a violent civil... Oh, look at that. They're saying he is purposefully stoking a violent civil war is worse. Okay. So there's not going to be any civil war. Donald Trump couldn't call for one. There isn't an oppositional poll. Anybody who says that there could be a civil war, I will debate them. Let's set it up, and I will ruin them for all time. I will put them back at their mother's tit. I am sick of these childish ideas being the ideas that are being discussed and promulgated and shared and contemplated. What the fuck happened to our race? Quote, if Trump really believes that he is having delusions of grandeur and needs some psychiatric help, close quote, television producer Zax tweeted, Republicans in Congress, do your job and protect us against this crazy, destructive person ever running for office again. Is this really the best you've got? Here's the scary thing, ladies and gentlemen. We have this poll that was, I think, released today that shows the Democrats doing very well in the coming up midterms. Now, in these polls, I've told you before, their results are what they want. They'll tell you, for example, if there is a bunch of momentum for a oppositional candidate to the anti-white regime, to whatever degree he or she is oppositional, they'll give themselves a nice bumper. They'll say, there's a lot of support for that guy. Here's a poll. There you have it. Then as you get closer, they'll say, whoa, opposition party candidate has just disappeared. What do you know? Don't bother going out to the polls. And then, it's a really interesting thing because it works a couple of ways. There's that way that it works. And what was that called again? It'll come back to me. It was that politician in the Southwest many years ago. Anyhow, there's also something that could be going on here. If Tucker's right, if elections are getting rigged, then maybe that would be a way to say, oh, look, the results ended up the way we expected. We had a poll. But I would also submit this. This is not what Tucker is saying now. I submit this to you, that the Republican Party is so pathetic that people aren't behind it at all. We're sick of the wet toilet paper Lindsey Grahams out there. I mean, this guy's participating as word is on the hill. It's just, I'm telling you, there's a rumor. I don't believe the rumor, but that he's like in sex parties. Would that not be the most disgusting thing imaginable? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? You'd never unsee that. You would need therapy for the rest of your life. So there you have this totally uninspiring party. And then the dissidents in their party, all they're going around doing nothing effective for us. And I'm going to tell you what they can do effective for us 10 minutes after the top of the hour. And I'm not going to stay much longer. I know I say that often, but the dissidents are just going around with the proxy position of Christian nationalism, if they push back at all. It's always some other proxy position. And that is where we go after them. More about that in a moment, as I've talked about before. It's as likely as that Mike Pillow will be enshrined president as it is that Trump will be reinstated. progressive, so anti-white piece of shit talk show host, David Pakman, who's I assume is always getting packed or doing packing, referencing the MyPillow CEO for trips. He goes on a lot of trips because he makes a lot of money. Mike Lindell, an outspoken proponent of Trump's false claims, the 2020 election was stolen from him. There were also suggestions that Trump's post was a sign of desperation over the possibility that he could soon be facing a criminal indictment. Yeah, kind of like what we were just talking about. Federal agents recovered multiple boxes of classified documents, probably printed up some of their own. Of course, that's a joke. The ears against the door. From Mar-a-Lago this month as part of an investigation into potential violations of federal laws, including the Espionage Act. Well, if Biden said that the things you had were classified, well, then if he decided to reclassify them, then I guess you get to go to jail. According to Tucker, having tasted impunity he enjoyed as president. Did he really have impunity? Trump is going to get increasingly desperate to reclaim those levers of power as Mar-a-Lago closes in on him. Attorney and former FBI agent Asha Rangappa. Is that really? This is your FBI. FBI agent Asha Rangappa. I'm sure you're going to get fair treatment from Asha Rangappa at the FBI, right? Sure, you're going to get fair treatment. You're already, because the white race is so deracinated and driven, and you still have these libertarian dipshits out there still talking about, no, we have to have individualism. No, we need radical individualism, as we're getting eaten alive. As we see the consequences of radical individualism when the white FBI agents, there's no phone call to you, the private call to you. There's no white guy at the FBI is picking up the phone and saying, like, I've been angry before in the past because I've saved myself from individuals in the white sympathetic sphere that were no good. They're no good. I realized and I was out of there. It would have been very easy for an FBI guy who cared about our people, and we had a brotherhood because of it, to pick up the phone and say, you don't know who I am, but we're listening, and they're not the right people to be around, son, because you're young and they're criminals. So you want to get away from them. I had to do it on my own. When the FBI comes to us, when those fit, strapping young men, jackbooted thugs, battering ram your door in, put an MP5 in your face while you're lying in bed, stomp on your dog, drag you outside, throw you down on the pavement in front of all your neighbors, in your drawers or whatever they have. I'm naked when I sleep, so I'll be fucking proud when I'm out there. Everybody else, though, humiliated because they're donut bodies and they're disgusting. They're dragged out. They're humiliated. Then they're thrown in cells with real criminals. Cells where, even in maximum security, sex trafficking people with all the eyes of the world on them get suicided. This is where we live today. This is infinitely worse than when we all used to look at the Soviet Union and the Stasi. So we don't have any brotherhood. Those white guys, they'll be for America. They'll be for America. They're going to show up locked and loaded, baby, with big metal shields and that barrel right in your face and a very big high-velocity round right inside of it, ready to blow your fucking head off. And they intentionally accidentally blow your head off. Well, they'll just be, he resisted and ended up with no head, ended up decapitated by the bullets that came out of the gun. We're the FBI. What can you say to us? That's what radical individualism has done for us. You want to know if radical individualism was bad enough? You can go all the way back after the First World War. And you had the soldiers were promised bonuses. And you had something called the bonus marchers. This was after the First World War. America was almost totally white back then, especially compared to what it is today. And these veterans showed up in Washington, D.C. with their families. And the radical individual white race went out there with machine guns and tanks. Tanks. By the way, for all the non-whites out there who want to just complain all the time about how hard it is to be non-white in America, they had tanks and fired machine guns, and they had attack dogs for women and children and war veterans. You got it? You libertarians out there, that's radical individualism for you. You didn't have a people that said to authority, no, you can't do that to our own people. Absolutely not. It would have been unthinkable if we had a people, if we were Western kind back then, if we had a people. So you had, that is the poison seed of individualism. These people walk around all the time talking about how great it is in conservative circles. None of them deserve teeth saying such stupidity or a tongue. None of them deserve it. You had America, 90+% white, and proud of white accomplishments. They believed that we had manifest destiny, but there was no brotherhood because it was radical individualism. So try to imagine an American football team. You can pick any sport. You can pick soccer, football around the world, American football here, if you like. Try to imagine where they're all got to do these metaphors because so many people, they're just like drooling and they're like, this guy's saying stuff I don't get. So try to imagine a sports team where everybody on the team is fired up with passion for the team. They've got their pennants. They're just like American football, right? They get the big team bunches in a giant huddle, the whole team. And they're hopping up and down, and the band's playing, and the flags are waving, and they're running across. The male cheerleaders are running across the field with the giant flags at university. The band's rocking it. The students are bouncing. The whole stadium is moving. They're fired up about their team. But then they get out there on the field, and they're like, oh, no. We're not going to play like a team. Oh, no. No. You see, we value individualism. We value being individualistic in every shape and way. So we're not good. How good would they do? That's exactly how good the white race did in the United States, and the same across the rest of the world. You had a little bit more of identities with ethnicities in Europe. That's why it took a little bit longer to crack those nuts, and they cracked nonetheless. Why? Because it was just an ethnicity loyalty. That's like saying in American football that the defense is loyal to each other, but not loyal to the offense. And the offense is a bunch of individuals. And the kickoff team, they're loyal to each other, but they're not loyal to the kick return team. How good would that football team do in its games with other teams? Exactly. This is actually a great metaphor. Final Blossom should write this up, which you all should be following his blog if you're not, and talk about this metaphor because it fits reality beautifully, absolutely beautifully. And don't tell me libtard-itarians and the rest out there that are endorsers of radical individualism. Don't tell me that, well, one day, you see, it might lead to, shut your fucking mouth. I don't give it what it might lead to one day because we're not going to get to that day, dumbass. We're not going to get to that day with things the way they are. Bryce says, perfect analogy. Thank you, brother. All right, we got to roll. Oh, and then, of course, they're going to say this. This is anti-whites all the time, as though it's perfect projection for them to say that other things are cults in the world. because nothing, the biggest cult in all of human history is anti-whitism. It fits the definition of a cult from A to Z and even adds some letters from other alphabets. The cult leader just posted his own social media site that he should be reinstated as president because he's the rightful winner, close quote. British broadcaster Davis tweeted. This is where his head is at. Desperation, panic, semi-fascism. You know, people like this. And look at Newsweek is quoting content creators around the West. So these are people who speak to millions, and this is their opinions. Oh yeah, there's not one side in control, in charge of everything, in charge of thought. It's not psychological warfare at all, except 100% of the time. Quote, Trump's a crazy person. A legal affairs editor, another anti-white regime establishment organ, like a sphincter on your backside. This Luke Zelensky, he makes no sense, contradicts himself, has no connection to reality. He simply spouts insanity. This is childish. This is for the American population because it's that dumb. It's that dumb. Radical individualists about to kick your door in. And I got these others in the white sympathetic. I'm trying to save people from having the FBI come after them. Radical individualists battering ram the door in, crush your dog's spine, put a firearm in your face while they're saying America, big white strapping young virile guy. He's got no loyalty to our people whatsoever. He's only loyal to America, which is whatever anti-white is in charge. That's what America is. He's like a literal human embodiment of fake news propaganda. You know, these people like this, Zelensky, better hope, and all anti-whites, they better hope somebody like me doesn't get in charge one of these days. Donald Trump wants to toss the Constitution in the United States. God damn, this is so... We might have to just quit. This is no content whatsoever. Wait, this is from Harvard Law School. Oh, this is that Lawrence tribe again. If he's setting up... This is from the other article. If he's setting up an insanity defense, here's some free legal advice. It won't work. By the way, I was lying about the free legal advice. The bill is in the mail. All right, that's it, actually. So good. All right, let me see what you all are saying. And I'll give you some pertinent thoughts. What can we do? What can we do? These final minutes of the show. If you want to talk to me, if you disagree with me, do it respectfully. The troll slayers will leave your comment up if you can do it respectfully. If you can't do it respectfully, then your parents were garbage. How does that sound for you? If you can't do it respectfully, your mother and father were shit. They raised shit. This so-called white race has to be talked to the way that it deserves now. I've spent so many years making persuasive arguments and being right again and again and again and again. And how am I repaid? In healthy times, the white race, everybody that came in contact with it, would submit to accuracy, would submit to truth. But that's not what we have. All right. Odyssey, nothing. D Live. And if you want to, you got to tag me as No White Guilt. Tag me as No White Guilt, or I probably won't see it. Even if you're the only person watching on that platform, there are the previous comments. I'll be looking for my tag. All right, so here you have a me not over on D Live. I just saw this. Said NWG, you've been here since the beginning of time, so it seems. Ooh. Do something worthwhile already. I kind of have done something worthwhile. You're just too fucking stupid to understand. You see, when you showed up, you were equipped with a midget wit IQ. And therefore, more than 30-point difference between you and me, very easily. Double that, even. Double it. You all have no idea. And so you just can't even understand when I make arguments about a psychological defense to the psychological warfare waged against us. You can't even get it. Do something already. And that reminds me, I am going to say something about people coming into the chat, and I get it because you have been misled. Do not come to me and tell me that people do things IRL and therefore they're legitimate. That's like saying everybody that you've ever worked with, they came to work and therefore they were the best employees. Therefore, they were the most productive. Therefore, they were the most efficient. Coming to work, going to work is the bare minimum. And it may even be counterproductive. If you've had to manage people, you know that you've had people that will show up for work day after day because they need that money. But not only do they not do what they have to do and build value for the company to warrant their paycheck, but they undermine the value that others are attempting to build for the company. So it's particularly annoying to me when prior to the internet, and I know everybody's life, it seems, it's so pathetic because so many of these other people that were back in the day prior to the internet, they have gone off into retirement. So many of them. You think that the internet and what's happening now is the way it's always been. We have always been IRL. That's all it was. That's all it was prior to the internet. Do you understand? That's all it was. I personally handed out tens of thousands of leaflets, and they were useless because it was people using old vehicles that had already lost, ideologies that had already lost, approaches that had already lost, white negativity that could never win, being in the anti-white narrative, which could never win, on and on and on, could never win. So getting together and meeting in public and putting up a leaflet or something of this nature is not doing something. Do not be fooled by somebody who says, well, we go out and we put up a leaflet. We go out and that's kind of like saying you have your own business. Say you fix bicycles. And the guy who fixes bicycles and goes out and personally delivers the advertisements for his bicycle repair shop is as effective as the guy who has a bicycle repair shop who broadcasts his bicycle repair shop to millions of people by way of other means, like the internet. Seriously, how much of a midget wit do you got to be to think those are the same thing? Now, if you have a community that you get together with that resists, you all are object to anti-whitism, and you all get together for picnics, you get together to commiserate, you get together to rear your children, whether it's some sort of pagan thing or Christian thing or just ideological thing, or it's a motorcycle club or whatever it might be. You get together, the getting together, the camaraderie, the talking to each other, that has a social value. It's not going to change anything in the world, but it's valuable for those individuals who are participating and the children that are being brought up in that environment. But saying that a group of people who dress up in mascot is effectively, they go out and they hold a conference that enriches and celebrates the conference organizers, that's doing something, you need to go back to the books, because that's doing nothing for us. Furthermore, we saw a great example for our people, for our countries. We saw, and I don't know how many ways I can explain this. I'll debate anybody and on this and anything else, and I will ruin them. I will send them back, as I said, to their mother's tits, so they can go get coddled and hopefully get some colostrum, maybe grow some nuts, because they didn't work last time. But you saw this, a great example on Going Free the other day, when you had somebody say, all you have to do is if you get 1 million people following you, it's game over, you win. No, it's not. No, it's not. How many people were following Trump? Why do I have to go over this again and again? Why can't people just realize that you cannot bring your superficial interpretations, and you can clearly see by the way I articulate things here that you are outmatched intellectually. Why can't you just say, this guy is making sense, and furthermore, they have proof of concept, so I'm going to participate with this. I get all of these testimonials coming out all the time. I'm going to participate. Why come to that guy? That's like going to your brain surgeon and saying, you know what? I read for 15 minutes last night online, and I think you should do it like this. That's how dumb that is. And I know Fernald is right. I shouldn't tell people that their ideas are dumb or what they're bringing is dumb. But I'm human, and I get pissed off. I get tired of explaining the same thing over and over. And furthermore, it's a lot of the same people will come back. What's not developing is a normal, salubrious, healthy behavior of people coming in, taking a look. Oh, this works. I'll try it out. That's normal. Showing up and saying, well, I know you've done all this research all these years. You submitted this to the scientific method. You have endless testimonials showing up all the time. You got people naming their kids after you. You've got blue collar working people contributing $100 here, $100 there, $50 here, $50 there. I know you got all of this, and it's been going on for a great many years, proof of concept. But you know what? I got a few thoughts on this. Shut the fuck up. I mean, Jesus Christ. So infuriating. Just go join the mascot crew. Just go join the cheerleader crew. These folks showing up and saying, then you could have like 1 million saltines march on Washington, D.C. They would gun every one of you down. It would never get that far. But if they did, they would just gun every one of you down, because you don't even have the slightest understanding. And then another thing that is really funny is when you have these people that show up from the white sympathetic sphere. All this is pertinent to what needs to be done. You have people show up from the white sympathetic sphere and they idolize a particular individual from the past. And they show up, and here you had, in their estimation, a guy that arrived and he was telling his brothers and sisters out there his view and his plan. And it seemed to them that this would work and made sense. And they were seeing success for a time, by the way, for a time, and then they lost. But they were seeing, and they said, I'm going to go with that. That didn't happen anymore because we're too sick. And you have plenty of money, unlike you didn't have that at that time. Now you have plenty of money and anti-whites who are cryptos, and they show up in our midst, and they always want to lead these counter schools of thought to undermine everything that makes sense, so that the rightful leaders of Western kind can never be recognized. You know, there's actually a school of thought. There's actually written material somewhere in the universe about preventing those out there that you want to dominate and victimize from ever finding and being able to properly identify their rightful leaders, the ones who could do the most for them, the ones who have figured it out. So as you see the costume crusaders multiply out there, maybe you'll have that, maybe you'll keep that in mind. All right, take a look at these financial gifts, and I'll tell you what we got to do. The great Yiz, the eunuch and unifier, says here, $5 financial gift. God bless you. She's given financial gifts, and she is on hard times. Her and her family are on hard times. They've had like a, what was it? Like a hot water heater. So no, the water coming into the house, pipe blow up, and computer go bad, and all of these other things. Living in a modest house, and she's showing up $5. Bless you. Thank you, sister. Here's 5 more. I'm sick and tired of anti-white vermin dollars. God bless you! Exclamation point. She actually wrote that. The Go Free method should be the framework of every single patriotic movement in our country. Exclamation point. We are the way forward. Kip. That's right, God damn it, Kip. Get out your raucous emojis, your 07s to salute, because you know how to salute. 07s, raucous emojis, V's for victory. And you look good doing it. Penelope Maynard, $150 US. 150. What it is right here? I'm 150. I'm sick and tired of anti-white vermin dollars. That's right. God bless you, sister. Hi, Jason. Many thanks for your edifying conversation with one of my favorite mutuals, I Hypocrite. Much love and zero white guilt, Penelope. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. He was a great guy. We had a great conversation. And I hope when he goes out into the world that he picks up a bunch of these tools and just lays waste. I want to see I Hypocrite with a scythe of fire taking down wheat. Anti-white pieces of wheat. Metaphorical. Thank you. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. $150. Because she knows this works. Over here we have 07's out for Axis Mundi. I'm about to tell you, if you leave now, even if your house is on fire, it shows that you're an idiot. Because I'm about to tell you what we have to do. Axis Mundi financially gifting $20 US and writes, "Go free everyone. It's good for you." Amen to that. Thank you so very much, brother. And another $10 from Axis Mundi, making $30 here in financial gifts, and says, traveling, so have to catch most of this in replay. Look at that. Even traveling, catching as much as he can, and we'll see the rest in replay. Keep those 07s and raucous emojis going for another champ. And we will call you. Let's see. Well, we'll call you by the first name. Nobody will know who that is. Jacqueline, financially gifting $25. $25 US. Thank you so much. 07s, raucous emojis. Celebration, my friends. Victories, victories, and V's. Writes here, love your passion for Western kind. Well, thank you for appreciating that. I really, genuinely, sincerely do appreciate it. Because unfortunately today, it takes a very special person to appreciate a real man of the West. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to everybody who, well, look at this. Keep the raucous emoji, making it easy to keep that part of your text open there with the raucous emojis, because keep them going and keep those 07s going. Big financial gift and salute to one of our dear favorites, been here forever, big advocate for white well-being, Quebec. $50 financial gift, saying everything that Quebec wanted to say with those 50 US dollars. People are upset, and they should be. And they're demonstrating it right now. They're demonstrating it with the things they're writing. They're demonstrating it with their financial gifts. They're demonstrating it with their wrath, with their family members and the people who continue to act like, oh, this is no big deal. What's going on now? Just another walk in the, and by the way, nothing new is happening. This is what I've been saying all along. This is the march of anti-whitism and the anti-whites. Why are we going to be freezing to death in many of our European countries this winter? Anti-whitism. It wasn't something just done. It wasn't something that can be easily, a switch turned easily back by just an election somewhere. It definitely is not something that you could get some sort of an entertainer to get a big following, and then you're going to be able to change something. Everybody who says that from now on, just throw Donald Trump in their face, because there was no bigger following. And there can be no bigger following. That's not going to do it. The reason why we are going to be freezing in our homes to death, the reason why today so many of our people are going to be burning wood for warmth in Europe, is because of anti-whitism all along. That's how you get to this place. That's how you get to this level of corruption, so unnatural for our people. That's how you, across states, across countries, across governments, across continents, it's the same everywhere. That's how we get to a place like this, where they're shutting down businesses for using electricity, where businesses are going to have to turn the lights off, run by our people, are going to have to turn the lights off early, not able to use air conditioning below 80 degrees in some places, Fahrenheit, while the anti-white governments heavily finance more victimization to Western kind by way of other peoples of the world, financing, bringing them in, giving them homes, giving them 3 square meals a day, giving them jobs, giving them benefits, giving them developmental grants. That's how we get here with no recourse. So what do we got to do? Politically speaking, sociopolitically speaking, and really that is what extends into what we're talking about here. Sociopolitically speaking, we need to promulgate the Go Free method as widely and quickly as we can. Where people are not ready, and we have teams doing this in a thoughtful, intelligent, organized way, where people are not ready for the totality of the Go Free method, which is just a practice, then the key concepts and other concepts from the Go Free method need to be used with them so that they start using those key concepts. We have to be intolerant of content creators that get attention for themselves based on they're pretty, or they're goofy, or they're funny, or they are so ballless like their massive audience that they accrue a massive audience because of it, because they are identifiable with a nation, and I use it as people for the totality of the white race, a nation of losers, a nation who can no longer understand excellence, who can no longer see excellence, who are just as jealous and envious of excellence as the anti-whites are. We can't just sit by. I mean, we have to be, we have to be diplomatic with those kind of folks. Where we have to be a combo of diplomatic and forceful is with the politicians, especially these ones who consider themselves dissident to the Republican Party, and the groups that support these dissident politicians in the Republican Party. So, we're talking about Green, we're talking about Boebert, I guess Gates as well, Gosar. Who else? Is somebody running? Archangel pointed out to us that what's the person's name? Bundy or something is running for governor somewhere. And there is Masters in Pennsylvania. Has he said Western kind? Has any of these people said white race? We're long past like Lauren Witzke's photo where she was imitating Trump with Mexican food or whatever it was or is, and saying, well, you love Mexican people, and that's a deceptive dog whistle. That's all that is. What are you actually saying? Do you care about Western kind? So with all of these people, we need to be pressing them to speak the truth. We need to say to them in so many ways that you are for Western kind, Mastriano. Yeah, that's right. Not Mastriano. We need to be saying that you are for the white race, that you care about the white race, that you're tired of the anti-whitism, that the anti-white narrative governs America. If they won't say these and other things, then they're no better than any of the so-called dissident Republicans at any other point in history. Just think of any Republicans over the decades that presented themselves of, I'm going to push back against what the Republican Party is. I want to steer it in a better direction. And they got all of this support from white people who said, yes, sick and tired of status quo for the Republican Party. We want something different. And then what did those people do? They sold everybody. They sold the white race the exact same garbage. And that's exactly what Green and Boebert and the rest of them are going to be selling us and are selling us. And we're going to have the exact same outcome unless we force them to use concepts from the Go Free method, period. Why is it that the concepts are important? The concepts coming out of their mouths will be repeated by the people who support them. They'll be repeated by the people who object to them. The concepts are what create the story you are in, the story that we as a society are in. The only good that they can do. None of these people are going to be able to push back against anti-whitism in the government. None of them. So when you get like these little pipsqueaks, these little cashew scrotal pipsqueaks who show up and say, well, we got to support this person and that'll be great because then they'll say a few edgy things that really make me laugh. When they show up, we need to tell them to shut the fuck up. There's no time for these asinine, childish games of they'll say something to really make me laugh. And that'll be good because that's winning. I don't know how to impress upon everybody that this is the end of days in a very real way if we don't recapture our destiny. If we don't take the wheel from little boys and little girls like that for the good of our people, this is the end of days. They can do to us what they want. I want you to try to understand what that means. We've talked about it a lot, that the anti-whites continue to propagandize us the white hundreds of millions around the world, because they have to. They are increasingly indifferent. They are realizing increasingly that they don't have to persuade you anymore. Even when you have a billionaire running for president, ran for president, was president, and you had tens and tens and tens, scores of millions supporting him, they increasingly don't have to persuade us. That means that we're nearing the day when everything is on the table for those who disagree. Everything. They will be able to do anything they want, and there'll be no place to hide. You're not going to white flight to some safer state, safer county, safer country. There isn't going to be a white country, county, state that will be safe. We cannot tolerate from Gosar an edgy comment that makes you giggle. He's got to say Western kind, white race. The ideology of the regime is anti-white. They all have to be saying it. It's got to be the litmus test. And as we grow here, we're going to have to use our strength to find a politician that these mascots and cheerleaders like, and that person fronts as a dissident to the Republican establishment, and we have to make sure that person loses. So when they talk about things like these proximity positions, these proxy positions, like, oh, it's just about Christianity. They're not defending where we're being attacked. Christianity is damaged because the white race is victimized. Period. End of conversation. Defending something that is not being attacked makes you a pussy. And I apologize to those who would rather not hear that. I'd rather not say it that way. But this is this close. When they go after these foes, when they want to talk about communism, when they want to talk about socialism, you can say, if it's your brother or it's your friend or whatever, you can say, look, that's a subset of anti-whitism. Some anti-whites might like communist form of government. Some anti-whites might like a socialist form of government. All of those like to be called communists and socialists. There aren't any 1950s ghosts that you're going to punch and be able to defend ourselves. All of that is a subset of the superset that is anti-whitism. And if you cannot get the balls to call this out, you want to continue with these foes and these proxy positions, there isn't a hope in hell. When it comes to these politicians, you need to tell them to shut up. Now, I am making comments to them, and I will make increasing comments on Twitter and Gab. We need not 12 likes and 5 retweets. We need 1,200 likes and 5,000 retweets and Gabs. We need these people to know how important this is. If I have to go, I mean, I don't know where it's going to get. I don't know where it's going to end up. The writing is so big on the wall. You know, if I end up having to go to these people's offices with somebody with a camera and confront them and demand, it's not going to be like going to a Jim Jordan office or something like that. They're just status quo Republican placeholder. But these others, if we got to show up and put them on the spot so that they either have to say, yes, it's anti-whitism, or, well, no, I think it's communism. If we got to do that, then maybe that's what we'll have to do. I'll find somebody who can kick ass and come with me with a camera, and we'll show up, because it's all of our asses. All of us are going to suffer the consequences of this stupidity. And it's not going to be good enough to say, well, we would have been able to do more if those mascots had been a little braver. We would have been able to do more if those cheerleaders would have, if they would have gotten 1,000 more viewers and therefore $1,000 more a month or whatever in behind the paywall content. Lauren Witzke, how many people regabbed or retweeted me when I politely said, after she did her stupid, likes Mexican people, deceptive dog whistle? We've had her on. I think she's a good person. Let's prove it. Let's let her prove that she's a good person. I messaged her and I said, let's say that we love the white race. Did she do that? Did she? Are you going to go around like you have been for your whole life? Some of you, might be in your 50s, your 60s or whatever, and you've been making excuses for politicians your whole life. Well, he really thinks. Well, what she really thinks, I'm such a mind reader, really thinks, going to do what he can, going to do what she can. And then what they can do and what they actually do, nothing. And then I hear these people make excuses for those folks long after they're out of office. Still making excuse for them. Well, he couldn't do X, Y, or Z because, no, the time for excuses is past. The time for listening to their deceptive dog whistling is past. We don't need somebody to show up at a Joe Biden event like this guy the other day, who everybody's showing that video of this guy shouting in the middle of the Joe Biden event, oh, you're a pedophile, oh, you're whatever. People are saying, look at this hero. That wasn't the hero. That was a comedian. Anybody thinking that's a hero has no idea what a hero is. Somebody doing something like that is just a comedian. Their life is a joke. All of the wrath, hear me, I gotta listen closely. All of your wrath, all of your effort needs to be focused at those who claim to be your leaders, those who claim to be your advocates and your champions. And any of them that won't say from the mountain's top with the utmost pride, we are Western kind. We are sick and tired of this being done to us. We are sick and tired of the anti-whitism in America. We are sick and tired of white children being victimized by anti-white policies. If they can't say that from the mountain's top with the utmost pride, burn them to the ground with humiliation, with insults, with cornering them so that they have to admit that the white race is not a preeminent concern for them, that the victimized group in America is not the number one concern for them. I have no idea. And maybe it's just a question of IQ, being so much more ahead of so many folks out there. But it is mind-numbing to watch so much stupidity and ineffectuality at work every day, and to watch millions applaud it. Leave the Democrats alone. If Boebert or Gosar won't say Western kind, white race. We're going to put an end to the victimization of white people. She and he do not deserve to ever hold office again. No more. And the people, by the way, who continue to make excuses for them, we know what they're really thinking. We know what they're really getting at. We know there's no time for that. Hey, what we know is horseshit. I've been angry tonight, and I could be a hell of a lot angrier. I'm going to look at what you say here. From Roy Danton, the great Roy Danton says, Promethean hails from the dark side of the moon, dear brother. Big Promethean hails to you, brother. Night Shroud asks, when would I be running for office in Virginia? I don't know that it will absolutely be Virginia, but maybe it will, maybe it won't. And I would do it exactly when it is the chances of winning are the highest where I run. Thank you for that question. You know what'll be interesting though is, you know, people like Green and etc. How much you want to bet they wouldn't support my candidacy? Promethean Promulgation, don't know what you were talking about, brother. It says, sometimes I think you would be better off ignoring them. Don't know exactly who that was. Certainly the Republican people. Is the mic still okay? I am paying. 0022 is asking, am I not paying for the Gab ads? No, I am. We have the Gab ad that's up right now and is doing extremely well, is promoting no white guilt clips. And as I said, please follow him on his platforms. Please share everything he does. Thank you, for the great Furno. My mic is good. Yeah, I just saw a little hiccup in the feed. We need communities where we train our children, work and employ outside one another rather than folks from the anti-white narrative. No white guilt in all things, says Bryce. Absolutely. Thank you for that, brother. This is really, it's the time that we have to get, and you're going to see this from me, maybe more and more, because it's the time that we have to get, it is the time in our lives when we're going to have to get as serious gets. I don't know what it's going to have to take to muscle whatever good there's left out of the white race. Because you can see what of their own volition, what they choose to occupy their time with. You can see what they're choosing, and then they'll argue that it's the way to go. It's how it works. It's what's successful. When it's just garbage. But fuel is disappearing across Europe. Food and is leaner, and these are not just like temporary things. That's a couple of of oligarchs. What do they call them? Like this conspiracies of these globe-trotting handful of guys. This is the consequence of the breakdown of Western civilization because of the disease in the body politic of anti-whitism and anti-white thought. The only thing that can be done is to possess people with the remedy to the brainwashing, the remedy to anti-whitism. Our politicians can be big players in that. They can do a great deal of good. These few who are touted now as the dissidents, they can do a great deal of good. But if they don't use the key concepts that turn back anti-whitism, they're useless. They're worse than useless because they give people, yet again, another excuse to sit on their asses and give apologies for and excuses for another politician who doing what she can, doing what he can. Listen to all the dog whistle. You know, the day is going to come when, if we don't promulgate this lexicon, and too many people continue to be cowards or jealous about using it because they don't have any sense of glory in themselves, so they don't recognize it in others. They want to be jealous of me. They want to be jealous of our champs here. If that continues, you know, the day will come when the anti-whites use your anger to motivate you to loving extremes for our people. Get out into the world, put maximum pressure on these dissident Republicans. Let's make them say the concepts that will save us. Or let's make sure that they lose their next opportunity to hold that seat. The darkest periods that you can find in history books, if we don't do this, will be like noontide compared to what the anti-whites will do to the West. It's late. Good night, America.